the only conversation we've been having on a national basis is about white supremacy. I've I've collected just a few of the shootings that have gotten no press response over the last couple months, and I'm only going to read a few of them from a last couple weeks. But this is what's happening that people are turning their eyes away from. October 2nd, 14-year-old girl shot in the West Englewood section of Chicago while standing on a sidewalk. September 26th, 15-year-old boy fatally shot in the head on the far west side of Chicago. September 1, 1-year-old boy in Kansas City, Missouri, killed when someone walked up to the car in which she was riding and riddled it with bullets. September 15th, 15-year-old girl shot to death in St. Louis. September 11th, 14-year-old boy killed in drive-by shooting in Northeast Baltimore. September 10th, female mail carrier on the far side of Chicago, fatally shot in head, abdomen, legs, and buttocks. September 7th, 6-year-old boy shot at the annual Jouvert party that opens the West Indian Day Parade. August 29th, 7-year-old girl killed at a family birthday party in South Bend, Indiana. Needless to say, those victims are all Black children. They comprise just one part of the 40 Black children who have been killed in drive-by shootings since the George Floyd tragic death. And we turn our eyes away from them because they don't fit the narrative. Instead, we're talking about phantom white supremacy. It is a remarkable failure, I would say, in our public discourse. I'm very tempted to say that it is objectively racist, because if we change the race on those children who've been killed to white, I have not a moment's doubt that there would be a national revolution, that this would be a huge story, that politicians would be called to account, and the media would be there. If I were a Black activist, I'd be furious. If I were a Black Lives Matter activist, I would be furious. We saw what happened with Newton, Connecticut. 24 white children killed. That became the source of public discourse for months on end. Now, they were all at one time, but the cumulative toll in Black communities of gang drive-by shootings reaches Newton, Connecticut's level, within months. And the remarkable thing, and that is another proof that the Black Lives Matter activists, that it's all just a fraud and a sham and a play for political power, is that they don't bring up these Black lives. I have never, ever, ever seen a Black Lives Matter activist at some of the very local vigils and protests against this violence that the good people in inner city communities do assemble without attention from the national media. But the Black Lives Matter activists don't give a damn, because it does not fit what turns out to be an enormously powerful narrative about white supremacy. The capitulation of elite whites to that narrative is so automatic, and the bounty that flows from their capitulation at this point so magnificent in its princely largesse, that there's simply no reason to change one's tune. And I would just add quickly, I think what's driving this is that Americans with good intentions are despairing at changing that inner city culture and would rather turn their eyes away from it because perhaps they fear it is not changeable, which I would disagree with, but that's my explanation for the root cause.
If you really cared about Black people, you would stick your neck out of the foxhole of, the Overton window kind of foxhole of what's permissible to be said, and you'd take a chance, and you'd decry, you'd call thuggery, you'd call vicious, kind of lack of contempt for the value of human life. You'd call it what it is. You would be willing to confront. Joe Biden goes to the bedside of Jacob Blake, and then he issues a statement about Jacob Blake. And this, I mean, no disrespect to Jacob Blake, no, gratuitous disrespect to Jacob Blake, but is he an honorable man? I would have questions about whether or not he's an honorable man. Right. Whatever may have happened to him, I would have questions about whether or not a presidential candidate should be speaking to the country from his bedside and telling us about his hopes and dreams for recovery. But who's going to write that piece and is going to say no to that kind of behavior? So
well, Candace Owens, I mean, she basically showed herself to be probably the most courageous person in history by recording a video several months ago about George Floyd and lamenting the fact that the majority of martyrs that are being celebrated now to police violence have very, very questionable backgrounds. They're criminals, and that points out a reality of police violence, that it is overwhelmingly occasioned by criminal behavior or resisting behavior on the part of individuals. That this is something that criminology has known for decades, that the biggest predictor of officer behavior is civilian behavior. If a civilian resists lawful effort to gain compliance, the officer is going to escalate his own force to gain compliance, and it can ratchet up to tragic levels, obviously. But that's what's going. Practically all of these shootings could have been avoided if somebody had resisted arrest.
George Floyd, I want to talk about it, and this thing that we're talking about now, the kind of self-censorship and the constrained ability to have an open discourse about what's actually going on for fear of giving offense or for fear of violating some stricture and coming off looking like you're a racist or like you're indifferent. It affects everybody, and it certainly affects even me. So a friend sends me an email. He says, "A gold casket? Really? This is George Floyd's funeral." Okay. Kason, you would have thought it was JFK. You would have thought,
right.
Really? Okay. And I'm thinking, I'm an African American. I'm saying, oh my God, look at my people, my Black people. Look at how we, I see Al Sharpton up there doing his shtick. I hear all the mournful recitations of the platitudes and whatnot. Now, not speak ill of the dead, certainly not speak ill of the Black dead brought to, death by the hands of a police officer. But come on, really? This is, and what are we saying to our children? I mean, here's what I want to argue with people. I say, when Obama was elected, you told me role models, he's going to change everything. Young Black men will have another, whatever. Well, there's a flip side to that. If you make miscreants, not even ne'er-do-wells, bums into your heroes, what are you saying to your children?
It is heart-wrenching to see the nobility, the honor, the courage of Blacks in the first part of the 20th century who made the best of themselves, who contributed so much to American culture. The musicians, Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington, with dressed to the nines, giving us beauty, sublimity in their music, in their dignity, at a time when they were subject to such heart-wrenching hatred and contempt, and yet they had the broadness and greatness of spirit to keep moving forward in a belief that integration was possible and that they could strive and meet high standards, and that ultimately we would be one culture. And now we have an oppositional culture. The identity of a large portion, not, I would say, the entirety, but at least of many Black leaders and some just Black American citizens is oppositional. The whole anti-white ethic in schools, which defines academic effort as a
Yeah.
sellout to Black identity. Uh, and this is part of a broader movement that just came out of the 60s, where you had protest being celebrated as necessarily right, because the civil rights protests were necessarily right. But from then on, the idea that America was ineradicably evil, took hold, and now you have people celebrating, as you say, uh, some of them thugs, simply because they stand as an opposite pole to authority. But the whole Law and Order meme, which is used, the New York Times and the Washington Post endlessly say that every time Trump invokes law and order, that's a dog whistle, and that's a racist phrase.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be interested in your opinion on that. Is that correct? I'll show my cards. I think it is. I think we are,
Yeah.
the breakdown of law and order these last couple months is terrifying. We're on the edge of civil anarchy. But how do you respond to that phrase?
I think it's perfectly legitimate. I think indeed it's necessary. I think it's imperative. Frankly, I think Obama ought to have used it. I said it. Obama, when Baltimore was up in flames after Freddie Gray, when Ferguson, Missouri was up in flames after Michael Brown, the president of the United States, a Black man, could have done something that might have spared us this, Heather, had he stood up in front of the microphone, instead of saying stuff like, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon, and stuff like, I can't quote him. We could do the research, but basically, let's not overreact to this thing. Give people a chance to blow off steam. After all, they've got a beef. Instead of saying that, if he had said, as a Black man, the first priority, the first imperative of the government is to secure individuals in their person and their property. No political objection justifies setting fire to anybody's anything. No political objection does it.
Right.
We are a country of laws, and I am the chief law enforcement officer of the country. And notwithstanding my commitment to civil rights and my love of African American culture and my appreciation of the frustrations of people, I, in the office of president, must insist. He could have said it. He didn't say it. I can't tell you why he didn't say it, but I can say, had he said it, it could have completely changed, in my opinion, it could have changed the political possibility set for anybody who occupies that office, because then the race card argument he's trying to dog whistle to the white racists out there by using law and order would have no credibility whatsoever. Trump or anybody would be able to say, well, wait, here was Barack Obama, your first Black president. I'm the president of the United States. I'm simply doing my job. He could have said, had Obama, et cetera. So who is going to suffer if civil society collapses in these cities? Who are going to be the people, not only from the criminal violence, but also from the collapse of the economic activity, as you have pointed out in some of your writing? I know I'm not going to invest my life savings in opening up a small business on an avenue when I look and see a housing project 2 miles down the road, and I have to contemplate the probability is 0.15 that they're going to burn me down if a police officer has to use this. I can see what a counter argument here might be. They would say, look at this is something that the Republicans have used going back a long way, Richard Nixon, et cetera. There are, after all, people out there who are going to be responsive to, if I say suburbs are endangered by civil disorder, they're going to think suburbs white, inner city Black, whatever. So they'll say that there's some kind of historical precedent for using the law and order trope as a way to activate the racist, subconscious racism of American politics. But if you're asking me, and I've told you what I think. I believe that President Obama actually ought to have responded quite differently to the civil disorder that took place during his administration. If he had done so, I think we would have had a very different situation going forward.